SpaceX prepares Starship 20 for a third static burn. Elon's success is a target for DC politicians. Dragon is go for a spooky liftoff. And we finish with today's honorable mention. I'm Kevin, and this is SpaceX in the News. After last week's SN20 static fires, SpaceX crews immediately began working toward executing a third one, with more engines. Last night, 2 more Raptor vacs were transported to the vehicle and installed under her skirt. The next fire-up could happen as soon as Monday morning. Soon we can expect the same to happen with the rocket's booster. Thermal protection shields have been installed around the base of the vehicle. All the while, Raptors keep getting transported back and forth from the area. The company is currently developing Raptor 2 engines for later Starship vehicles, and they have already tested the first ones, succeeding at reaching 321 bar before the engine disassembled itself. And that may have only happened due to oxygen inlet pressure being too low rather than issues with the engine itself. Besides a cleaner design with less plumbing, this new model has a larger throat diameter, allowing it to produce more thrust than the current version at the same chamber pressure. But Elon is itching to launch the entire Starship Super Heavy rocket with Raptor 1 engines for the first time. They'll be ready to do just that next month. The question is, will the government allow it? The public has until November 1st to submit their opinions on the matter in writing to the FAA. If denied, I believe SpaceX will turn their gaze upon the sea and expedite the development of their oil rigs turned spaceports. However, SpaceX may also be looking to convert Slick 40 at Cape Canaveral, Florida as a future location to launch Starship. Over the summer, Elon said Starship Cape missions would happen long term. A couple days ago, a drainage permit application for upgrades to the pad were submitted. And while nothing is written in the document indicating all of this is for Starship, it's being speculated by Space Explored that the proposal for a major increase in concrete and pipage could be for future Starship launches. But still, SpaceX is moving forward at Starbase, Texas, like everything is going to work out in their favor concerning the environmental assessment. Booster 4's aero covers have been staged on site for imminent installation. SN21's upper half is closing in on the stacking stage of development. And the new wide bay has begun sprouting out of the ground, so eventually multiple Starships can be stacked at the same time. The lunar nose cone prototype appears to be heading toward the scrapyard, possibly to make more room on the grounds. The tower's new arms have been unhooked from crane support and is relying on its own hardware. Yesterday, it even moved a little. These are awesome shots provided by locals like RGV Aerial Photography and Starship Gazer. Seriously, go follow these guys and support what they do. Their information is listed below. Elon certainly knows how to run an operation. With each passing week, he's proving to everyone that Starship and Starbase production is being finely tuned. Those hydraulics that were transported in last week are already being installed on the tower, almost with the kind of timing you would find on an automotive assembly line. It's just another example of how our supply chain is like a living organism. And if Democrat policies are the congestive heart failure bringing the whole system to its knees, then Florida Governor DeSantis' leadership is the insulin. But speaking of politics that threatens SpaceX's mission to colonize Mars, Elon, who is the richest man on the planet, is now expected to eventually become the world's first trillionaire thanks to SpaceX and Tesla, but mostly SpaceX, specifically Starship and Starlink. And Democrats, currently at the helm in DC, are trying their best to destroy him with proposed unrealized capital gains tax for millionaires and billionaires, which means Elon would have to pay yearly taxes on money that he doesn't have and cannot spend because it's invested money, which is the lifeblood that sustains innovation and productivity. Keep in mind, the only reason SpaceX and the Starship program exists is due to investors. Tesla would not be a thing today had Elon not repeatedly put his own money into it. Democrats say this new tax will fund their 2,500-page infrastructure bill that comes with a multi-trillion-dollar price tag and will pay for things like a new federal climate police and a $200 million park in Nancy Pelosi's district, which is leaving some confused since Democrats originally said the bill will cost nothing. Elon was correct to note that this tax only covers a small portion of the bill's total cost, and that the vast majority of the money will have to come from we the taxpayers. Eventually they run out of other people's money and then they come for you, which is exactly what Americans saw when the IRS and federal income tax became a real thing. Elon then posed a question to all the big government fanatics. Who is best at capital allocation? Government, whose wasteful spending and printing never managed to eradicate poverty despite the $28 trillion national debt, or entrepreneurs, who provide jobs and goods to sustain their companies because they can't just print money.
The government in this town is excellent and uses your tax dollars efficiently.
The good news is, history has already shown us the answer. that free market capitalism, not government, is responsible for drastically improving society and reducing absolute poverty in the world. The left's fair share rhetoric comes from jealousy and apathy and aims to destroy Western society and all the good things it contains, like SpaceX. Everyone says they hate crony capitalism, but all cronyism is socialism. Politicians picking winners and losers. Here's some free advice for any socialists watching. You want to be successful like Elon? Stop looking to government for answers. Stop blaming others, and instead spend your time bettering yourself. Yes, some people, a lot fewer than you think, do need genuine help for whatever reason. That's why we have churches, charities, and nonprofits. That's not why we have an American government.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Speaking of people who lack a victimhood mentality, the astronauts of Crew 3 in their brand new Dragon capsule, Endurance, have been given the green light by NASA's Flight Readiness Review to lift off for the space station on Sunday morning. Full integration of the rocket has been complete. The vehicle went vertical just days ago and has since performed a successful static fire of its first stage. Also, the Russian space agency, Roscosmos, says they are now confident enough in SpaceX to begin flying their cosmonauts aboard Dragon.
The American component, the Russian component, all made in Taiwan!
And because of Falcon 9's reliability and low cost, SpaceX won another contract this week to launch an Emirati imaging satellite from the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center, expected to launch in 2023. And last thing, really quick, we did manage to get our hands on more inventory for polos, so if you're interested in owning one and repping the channel brand, I put a link to the store in the description box below. And now it's time for today's honorable mention. A self-taught American inventor from Colorado, Dylan Edmiston, found himself in the spotlight a couple weeks ago when Elon saw his Iron Man suit hitchhiking by the side of the road outside Starbase. Dylan is a fan of our show, so I got the opportunity to interview him about his experience and aspirations.
Literally, my goal is to actually build a working Iron Man suit. I just put all my heart and soul into this. I work somewhere between 70 and 100 hours a week on it. It took about a year once I started fabrication, but I had to build a lot of my own tools. Like I said, I had to build my own CNC machine. So I told you earlier that I build rockets. That's the other thing I do. I also develop rockets, and my goal is actually to break the speed of sound in suit armor. I'm really inspired by Elon Musk. That's part of the reason. That's another thing. One of the questions you asked me is why did I go down there? I went to Starship. Part of the reason I went down there to talk to Elon is because I was trying to get him to fund me.
Okay.
And I asked him, and he's like, "I'm busy." Well, okay, this is actually what he said. I asked him. I'm like, I pulled over by the side of the road, and he came out. But I explained to him what I was doing, and I'm like, "You want to fund me?" And he's like, "I think the risk of death is high." and then I'm like, okay, but I'm not trying to pilot it the first time. My goal is to have it, be automated. My goal is so the Mark 1, the one I'm working on right now, I'm going to put rockets on each foot. It's going to hover, and it's a thrust vector control and be able to move around like that, just kind of like an actual rocket does. And then that's what I'm going to be done with the Mark 1. I'm also building a flamethrower for it. That's going to be really cool. So Mark 2 is going to fly horizontal. And so I told this to Elon, I think the probability of death is high. I'm like, well, I'm not going to be in it the first time it flies. I want it to be able to completely run remotely and stuff like that. And then he's like, okay, I'm busy trying to get people to Mars. That's what he said. So,
just ran out of excuses.
Yeah. My main place where people can follow me, where I put most of my work, is on YouTube. And it's just my name. So if people want to look for me, they can find me there.
If you'd like to see our full interview, sign up as an Eccentric member or patron. Regardless, I recommend you subscribe to his social media. Links are below. Well, that's all I have for you guys today. Thanks for watching. Shout out to all of you supporting this show. Have a phenomenal weekend. And until Halloween, Godspeed.